So hello, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Indicator 14 post-school outcomes data collection kickoff webinar. We have some important updates to share with you for 2023 data collection, also known as FFY or Federal Fiscal Year 22, for the spring and summer 2023 collection period. My name is Greg Toby. I am the Special Education Student Outcomes and Data Specialist at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I'm the Indicator 14 lead and the SPP APR coordinator. A lot to remember there. Joined with me on our call today, also presenting, I have Bob Shepard from PIR. He was just waving there. Other folks from PIR that are on the call with us today, Pat Turbot and Patrick Serio. And we also have some district representatives who will be sharing with us some of their strategies for data collection that have worked out. And so I'm very thankful for them to be joining us today. Let's go over our agenda for this afternoon. Next slide, Bob. Thank you. So our agenda for this afternoon, we're going to go over a brief overview of Indicator 14 for those of you who may not be familiar with it, or to refamiliarize yourself with the requirements for Indicator 14. We will then go over how to prepare for the online survey, how to administer the online survey. We'll review a couple of reminders on how to improve response rate, and then we'll wrap up with some general Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we go along, and we will do our best to address them either on the spot or later on in the presentation during our Q&A session. We don't expect this presentation or webinar to last longer than 90 minutes. Will probably be a little bit shorter than that, but we wanted to give ample time for our presentation and for any questions. So we are going to begin with a general overview of Indicator 14, what it is and why it is important. You can go. Thank you, Bob. So as we begin talking about Indicator 14, we want to start by reflecting why Indicator 14 is important. In Massachusetts, the focus on pre-K to age 22 education is to prepare students for success in their adult lives. And the data that we gather through Indicator 14 helps us to find out if our students did end up becoming successful. We use the Indicator 14 survey by following up with your former students who had IEPs 1 year after they left high school to find out if they had been engaged in employment and or further education or training. The responses to this survey and the summative information it collects helps provide us with an indication of the success of our educational efforts at the state and local level. So again, we follow up with our students who are with IEPs 1 year after leaving high school. Indicator 14 is a federal reporting requirement mandated by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. It is one of 17 indicators of special education compliance and performance that Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education reports to the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, in our annual State Performance Plan Annual Performance Report, or SPP-APR. That SPP-APR gets submitted to OSEP each February 1st and gets posted onto our website in the following weeks. And specifically, Indicator 14 aligns well with Massachusetts' focus on preparing all students for success after high school. The federal criteria which you see on the screen here, for successfully attaining one or more of these 4 outcomes are more modest than many former students and their families set for the first year out of high school. For example, the federal criteria for enrolled in higher education within 1 year of leaving high school is completing 1 or more semesters or terms at a 2 or 4-year college. Completing even 1 class in a semester meets this criteria. That is why perhaps we call this reporting an indicator. It doesn't give us a full picture, but it provides us with a useful snapshot. So within indicator 14, we look at 4 different measurements. That is enrolled in higher education, competitively employed, in some other post-secondary education or training program, or in some other form of employment. Some changes that have occurred starting in 2023. So as a reminder, the cohort model for indicator 14 ended with the 2022 collection. Previously, every district was divided into one of 4 cohorts, and you would have collected indicator 14 every 4 years. We have moved to a census model, meaning every district will be collecting indicator 14 data every year moving forward. We hope that this will do a few things. One, it will provide a closer alignments to a number of other indicators that are included in the SPP APR, specifically indicator 1, graduation, and indicator 2, dropout rate. And it will provide a more comprehensive picture of outcomes for our students with disabilities across the entire state. By collecting data on a yearly basis, it will also help to identify trends within your district's data that you may not have been able to see by collecting it only once every 4 years. So let's review how indicator 14 data is collected. We collect indicator 14 data by using surveys. For many of you, your last time your district conducted indicator 14 surveys, staff may have used paper surveys and submitted that survey data using an Excel spreadsheet. However, in 2019, we created an online version of the survey, and that development was very successful, and that is how indicator 14 data has been collected since. This online survey simplifies the data collection process. It automatically compiles and saves your data, and you no longer need to submit your data in an Excel spreadsheet and uploading it into our Dropbox. This year, staff will use an online survey that is available in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Vietnamese, Simplified Chinese, and Portuguese, and we'll use it to collect information from your former students with IEPs. The website address is there on your screen. You will also receive a link in an email that I will be sending out to all special education administrators and any other district contacts that have been identified as working on indicator 14. You can complete the indicator 14 surveys in one of 2 ways. District staff may complete the online survey with a former student, or the former student may complete the survey by themselves. In situations where the web survey is not available or the student cannot complete it, you can complete the paper survey and record the responses, and then a district staff member can enter those responses into the online survey later on. Later in our presentation, we will show you a updated question that has been added since the last time you may have collected indicator 14, and some of the questions may have been slightly modified as well. Again, you'll receive the web link, but you'll also receive Word document versions of the paper survey in the 6 languages that I mentioned just a few moments ago. So when is indicator 14 data due? This is very important and something that you will want to take note of and make sure that you have your surveys completed by September 15th, 2023. All online surveys must be completed by this date. If you collected survey data last year, you may note that this is a little bit earlier than last year. But to compensate for that, we will be opening the data collection period earlier as well. We will be opening the online survey on May 15th. So you will have from May 15th through September 15th to collect your indicator 14 data through the surveys. Again, please ensure that all surveys are completed and submitted on time so that we can meet federal reporting timelines and requirements, given the fact that we are transitioning to a census model and the number of districts that we're collecting for has now multiplied by 400%. We need to make sure that we have ample time to go through and analyze and clean up our data prior to submitting it in our SPP APR. So we'll next transition into talking on how to prepare for the online survey.
Good morning, everybody. Is the voice loud enough? Yes, okay. So indicator 14 has a full range of TA docs that you'll be getting soon with your, I may have seen in the past, that will support this information in this webinar and help you plan. There's also for the startup, and there's also a script for interviewers to use and practice with, and includes information about some questions that people may have about the particular survey. To get your process started, we recommend you identify your survey team and plan how you will train and orient them, their work, and to set timelines. If you're a small district, the team may be just one person. If you're larger, will necessarily involve more people. As we discuss later in this presentation, survey response rates are improved if exiters are contacted by people they already know, teachers, counselors, or other people in the district that they've had interactions with. It's important that you review all the documents that you are emailed this month, and each technical assistant document that will be mailed with the step-by-step directions and such all will be included with those mailings. So we'll be talking about who is an exiter next, and then go on to these other topics, how best to contact them, and a bit more detail on how to submit data. Exiters are students who had IEPs, who during the 2021-2022 school year graduated from high school, aged out of education with or without a certificate of attainment, or dropped out of high school. And note that includes those students who were expected to return for the next school year, but didn't. DESE provides each district with an exiter list generated using your data that was submitted to the SIMS data repository in 2022. And your district lists are available in that security portal. Once logged in, browse to Dropbox Central and then to indicator 14, download and save your district's Exeter file securely. Next would be the confirming your Exeter list, and we find that there are very few changes necessary, but we allow for that to happen. This is how we plan to do that. So based on the state data, the SIMS data, all the people on your list are thought to be exiters in that definition, but you shouldn't serve anyone who returned to school or enrolled in another K-12 district after leaving your district, or who did not have an IEP or exited in another year other than last school year. So compare the list in the data repository that you download to your school records. And in the step-by-step directions TA document, you can create or use, if you can request one from us, a spreadsheet just to indicate that you want students added or removed. Enter the reason for adding or removing those individuals, and you can upload the spreadsheet to an indicator 14 Dropbox on the DSE security portal. You can contact Patrick Serio, who's running the electronics today, at our offices, and his email is pirmass14@potsdam.edu. And to request that exiters be added or removed. And Patrick has clearance to discuss individual exiters information with school staff. And I wanted to point out that we only have a few districts contact us each year with changes. And it's many find that the lists match up perfectly. And once you've identified or confirmed the list of 2021-22 exiters, you can use the student exit forms that were completed by students in the spring of 22, and you can compile that contact information to have it available for your interviewers. If you don't have student contact info forms available for any individual exiters, no need to worry. You can review students' exit emergency contacts, other school records, and cumulative data records. More accurate your contact information is, and more up to date, more likely it is you are to reach your former student. If you need some suggestions on doing that, you can contact us at PIR. How to administer the online survey. That's to plan ahead, as we've mentioned. The surveys should be planned to be completed by September 15th. You can use emails, phone calls, snail mail, as we used to say, and social media. And plan how often you will contact exiters, which district staff will reach out to which exiters. You may want to publicize the fact that the survey is going to be happening in a newsletter or in your online venues. All right, I just wanted to make a request and a reminder on when you sign in to fill out the survey on behalf of a student. Please be sure to fill out that your staff that they work for the district, even though they are going to be responding for a former student or a former student whose parent or guardian is responding on their behalf. That way, it'll be clear to us who's doing the survey, either the individual student or staff. So if your staff indicate that you work for the district, sorry. And then also include your first, last name and your role at the district. Occasionally, we're not sure how to match student survey data to demographic information and to match them or to match them to your school district. So it's important to have the SAS IDs available for your interviewers to fill in this form. And that's the best index we have. And then you'll have a pop-up list on your district. If you pop it up and type the first letter of your district, you'll jump right to that letter. So you're not looking through a list of 300 districts. Gets the number down quite a bit. How you reach your exiters, well, you get to choose which methods you feel will be most effective and most efficient. We suggest that you mail and/or email former students, your exiters, shortly before you plan to start calling, and allow time, a short time for them to complete the survey online. Consider sending a follow-up letter a week or two after the first, after initiating your contact, to encourage completing the survey either online or by phone. And you can provide contact information if they want to call in, set up an appointment, or talk directly to a staff member. If more than a month has passed, consider sending a dash reminders if they haven't been interviewed. Please make at least 3 attempts to reach your exiters. And each a phone call or email or letter or text, each count as a contact attempt, although merely mailing or emailing is not very effective in getting surveys completed. It's the phone calls that tend to yield the best response rates. And when you're calling, try different days of the week and different times of the day to get through if you don't succeed at first. And districts with high response rates tend to attempt outreach to exiters more than 3 times. How do you know when a student has completed a survey online so that you don't have to try to contact them and interview them again? By your staff, typically Patrick Serio will send you regular emails to your indicator 14 district contact. In most cases, this is a special education administrator, to let you know which exiters have completed the survey. If someone other than your district special ed administrator needs to receive these updates, please email the correct contact to Patrick Serio at the email indicated here. And please CC those to Greg so he is able to keep track of those changes. Yeah.
Really quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Many special education administrators have emailed me additional contacts for indicator 14 collection. Thank you for that. But again, I just want to stress and reiterate what Bob said. If you do have any other district staff who are working on indicator 14 and you would like them to be on our distribution list, please email both Patrick and myself so that we can add you. I know that the indicator 14 collection period does run over the summer, and sometimes there is some staff turnover. So if we do have multiple contacts for each district, It does assist us in our communication and outreach if there is any staff turnover throughout the summer and into next school year. So please make sure that you email both Patrick and I. Thank you, Bob.
So our email updates are sent out every 2 weeks in the summertime till early August, and then weekly thereafter. You can let Patrick know if you need additional information about who has completed the surveys or if you have other technical questions. Couple of reminders. In last updates to indicator 14, there was a lot of emphasis on competitive integrated employment, which has been the emphasis for folks with who experience disabilities in VR, the New York State Labor, or not, any state labor department, and other services. And the definitions were more vague in the past, and they've spelled those out. So most people are working in competitive jobs at the job sites that are much the same as those that the peers without disabilities work. We know only a small fraction of former students with disabilities are likely to work in non-competitive employment. Typically, students who need low levels of support while in school are unlikely to be employed in non-competitive employment. However, the minority of special ed students who receive intensive levels while in school may be employed in non-competitive employment. So if it's non-competitive employment where wages are paid and it lasted 13 weeks or 90 days or more, and they were paid wages, was minimum wage or better, it goes into competitive. And then if it meets these criteria, and otherwise it would go into other employment, and both will count towards the positive engagement rates. So just to review this, typically minimum wage or more, not less than the customary wage for the position that they're in. There's the same level of benefits that the employer provides for the same or similar work provided for individuals who are not disabled in the typical competitive labor market on a full or part-time basis, in a setting with others who are non-disabled, and in an integrated setting. And this also includes military service. And in the sample script that interviewers can use, or we recommend that they use, there's a review of these characteristics. Typically, businesses that are competitive business, where the vast majority of folks are working, follow the labor law. And in your own communities, you know, the employers, you probably know the employer that the former students working locally. You don't have to get into questions to verify these. But if you may want to follow up with some questions if it's unclear initially, if the job is competitive or out of the competitive labor market, but still employment. If it's, get into that. Improving response rates. So to understand the experience of all types of former students with disabilities, we need to hear from all types of students proportionally, ideally, and also all exit types and all other across the demographic characteristics. Higher response rates will generally provide more accurate pictures of the actual engagement rates. The statewide and your district reports will be more complete and more useful. And we do now have a district report that you would be receiving next year for your local use. So the more students you interview, the more students will be in that report. With better survey data, better decisions can be made on the state, local, and regional level. Use former students who know the students, former students and their families know and trust. We suggest that you have on hand information about helpful local resources. Basically, it's check in, check up on the transition plan that was in place at student exit. And it helps, it increases the value of the survey by helping people connect or reconnect with services that can support them in their living, learning, and earning. Again, sharing these resources will have a positive impact on people's perceptions of the survey and can positively impact youth lives as they do connect with helpful services. Again, consider publicizing the survey. And again, for this year, anytime transition is discussed, I suggest that you mention the survey, that it's something that will be done, that the information is important, that you look forward to talking to them about their experiences after high school. Make plans to provide assistive technology, translation, or other support to help ensure exiters who need them can participate in the survey. And students may ask that people who typically support them, help and support them, can respond to the survey on their behalf. Plan your time strategically when staff do try to contact students. And we tend to try to spread it between either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, weekend, morning, afternoons, and evenings. We find evenings here in our call center, evenings and late afternoons to be most productive. And then go to those other times when that doesn't work out. Okay.
All right.
Done here.
No, that's okay. You can stay on that slide, Bob. Thanks. So first and foremost, thank you, Bob, for reviewing how to administer the online survey and a couple of reminders about improving response rates. We're now going to move into some district participation. I've asked a handful of districts to present on some strategies that they use within their districts that have promoted a very high response rate. The districts that you'll hear from represents a variety of district sizes, district locations, district demographics, and also a range of response rates that were above the state average over either one of the past 2 years. And we're first going to start off with Allison Brown Collins, the Director of Student Services from Manchester, Essex, who is going to share with us some tips and strategies that she uses within her district.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Allison Collins, and I'm in Manchester, Essex, which is a small regional district north of Boston. We have approximately 230 special education students in our program. We were very successful with the indicator, and as was said earlier, we found that personal contact was what made us successful. So we had our liaisons connect with seniors before they graduated and get their contact information. We also maintained the parents' contact information because that was helpful as well. We would send an email to notify the family, the student of the survey that they needed to complete. And occasionally we had a response from that, but more typically we obtained information when we followed up with a call. If we could not reach the student directly, we would speak with the parent to obtain the information. Sometimes that did work better. And something else, when we were stuck and were having trouble getting the family to respond, we would reach, or my office would reach out to liaisons, because often they were in touch with students, or it's a small community. So often they were hearing from students more informally about, or the students' parents about what they were doing post-secondary. And so we were able to use that information as well to complete the survey. So it was rare that an individual completed it themselves. Often we were taking the information, doing the interviews on the phone and filling it out so that the survey could be completed. So those were all factors that made us successful. And I would recommend those approaches. I do think that I don't know if other districts have tried speaking with their liaisons just to see what other information they're gleaning when it's a student they can't reach, but that was particularly successful for us when we were feeling stuck.
Great. Thank you very much, Allison, for sharing that
Sure.
with us today. Next, I would like to introduce and ask to share Kristen Steiner from the Director of Student Services at McCann Tech in Northern Berkshire. Kristen? Is Kristen?
Oh, yeah. Hi. Hi. Hi, everyone. So I'm Kristen Steiner from McCann Technical School in North Adams, Massachusetts. A lot of what Allison said is very similar to what we did. We're a small school, but I think if you could maybe almost set up this process maybe for a smaller caseload of students and have one person maybe be in charge of making the contacts with that student, I found that to be helpful, that we had one person who was in charge of doing the surveys with all of the students on our list. We did something similar, and we're starting it now with our seniors. Our paraprofessional who works with a lot of the students is meeting with them, and we have a form that she is filling out to gather student information that we don't already have in our student information system. So she's asking for things such as their own personal cell phone that we don't always have within our student information system, so we can reach out that way, an alternate email address that they may be setting up currently to think about after graduation and employment. So we're trying to gather that information now so we have it when we reach out again for those students next summer. And we did that last year at the end of the school year for the students that we will be contacting this year. And then when the summer started, we started reaching out, again, very similar to what Allison did. She was persistent with being back in touch. A lot of times we got family members first, and then we just kept calling back, and the family members were helpful in sharing the paraprofessionals' contact information with their children so that they would call us back. And then also, I think the word of mouth kind of spread. I thought it was interesting that in the slides earlier that it was mentioned that sometimes advertising it, the students may talk amongst themselves. So that did sort of start happening, that they would say, oh, you know, did Ms. Rufo reach out to you? And we actually got some call back from students that weren't even on our list of who we were supposed to reach out to. So that was helpful as well. I did put a form together with the survey questions for the paraprofessional to use as part of her script. So it was very helpful because she had the questions in one column, and then she was able to type her answers to the questions in another column. So like Allison said as well, most of our responses were her putting the responses in, the students not completing them on their own.
Great. Thank you very much, Kristen. Our next district representative, unfortunately, contacted me a little bit before we started, and she was unable to join us. But I was going to have Constantina from Somerville. She's the special education department head at the high school. Some of the strategies that Somerville shared with me back a few months ago was once again really informing their exiters about the importance of the survey and that they were going to be contacted approximately a year after leaving high school. They have created their own internal tracking system and their own student contact information form. One of the unique things that they have on their student contact form, which is a simple Google form, is they ask the students if there's anyone specifically that they would like to have contact them during the survey period. So if it is a guidance counselor, a former teacher, a paraprofessional, someone else within the high school that the student had a close relationship with, they would be the ones to contact them. And they too, similar to what Allison and Kristen had said, and we've shared of, multiple ways of outreach, varying the time of day that they contacted their exiters, and maintaining an ongoing relationship with the family led to high response rates for Somerville during their collection. Our last district is Lowell. I believe Frank Vicente, he's the Director of Special Education. He is on our call right now. Frank, is there any, what would you like to share in terms of your district strategies for Indicator 14?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize that my camera is off. So ultimately here in Lowell, persistence was key. I don't know that we did anything, special with the work that we did. We got out in front of it proactively. We got in front of it early. We made sure, and we continue to make sure every year that we have our students who are exiters provide as much contact information as they can. We utilize staff that are familiar with our exiters. We offered stipends for staff to be able to participate in that. And they just used a high level of persistence. Phone calls, home visits, different levels of community outreach. Again, I'll say it again, persistence was key, making sure we had multiple contacts, and utilizing staff that were very familiar with our exiters, who had a relationship with them is really what was most important for us, and being able to get the response rate that we did.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. And again, thank you, Kristen and Allison and Frank, for joining us and your willingness to share what each of your districts has done. Before we wrap up and we get into some questions from everyone, a couple things that I just want to touch upon again that we have mentioned already. First and foremost, the collection window will run from May 15th, 2023 through September 15th, 2023. Next week, you will be receiving an email from me, and I apologize for the number of emails that you have probably gotten from me over the past few months. But that email is going to contain absolutely everything in that you're going to need for Indicator 14 data collection. There is the kickoff letter and some key information in that. There is a step-by-step document on how to go through and collect Indicator 14 data, how to verify your lists, and what to do if there are any discrepancies. There is a paper version of our survey. There is a student outreach letter. Both the paper version of the survey and the outreach letter have been translated into English, Spanish, Portuguese, Vietnamese, Haitian Creole, and Mandarin for your use. Those will come in a zip drive. And then in that same email, I will alert you that your exiter list has been uploaded into Dropbox. So you should be expecting that next week. If you have any questions about the TA documents, please email myself or Patrick. The district reports that Bob mentioned, that was new this year, that we put them together for districts that were in cohort 3 and collected data last year. Those reports, I hope were informational to our districts in cohort 3. We will be putting those together again, and it gives you a little bit of a further breakdown of your district's performance on indicator 14 in terms of your district's response rate, and then a breakdown of your exiters by demographic categories and engagement types. Lastly, before we get into the questions, and I see there's a couple coming in the chat, the dual activity of collecting exiter contact information and then contacting your exiters is going to be the norm going forward. So in the spring, you should be collecting contact information for your exiters who will be leaving that June. Then in the summertime, you will be collecting the indicator 14 survey data for your exiters who left the previous June. So putting it in context for this year, I sent out a contact information sheet. You should collect that for all of your students with IEPs who will be leaving this school year. And then this summer, you'll be contacting your exiters who left in June of 2022. It does get a little confusing, and I have to sit and think about it, about what we're actually collecting and who we're contacting at different points. But if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out.